Okay. Again, good afternoon. Welcome to the fifth module of auditing in CIS environment, which is tools and techniques used in auditing IT. So, computer technology has become an integral part of most organizational functions. It is likely that many audit clients either have eliminated or will eliminate a substantial portion of their paper documents and replace them with electronic documents filed only in computerized form. An auditor who is unable to use computerized audit tools and techniques effectively will be at a disadvantage. So today's auditor must be equipped with an understanding of alternative tools and techniques to test the operations of computerized systems and gather and analyze data contained in computerized files. Auditors can take advantage of those tools and techniques to be more efficient and effective when performing audit work. So the learning objectives for today include the following. 1. Define auditor productivity tools and describe how they assist the audit process. 2. Describe techniques used to document application systems such as flow charting and how these techniques are are developed to assess the audit process. Number 3. Explain what computer assisted audit techniques or CAATs are and describe the role they play in the performance of audit work. 4. Describe the various CAATs used in reviewing applications, particularly the audit command language or ACL audit software. Number 5, differentiate between auditing around the computer and auditing through the computer. And 6, describe computer forensics and sources to evaluate computer forensic tools and techniques. Okay, so there are three types of software or tools and techniques used in today's IT audits. So it either can be audit productivity tools. These are software that helps auditor reduce the amount of time spent on administrative tasks by automating the audit function and integrating information gathered as part of the audit process. 2. System documentation techniques. These are methods such as flow charting, data flow diagram, and business process diagram applied to document and test application systems, IT processes, and their integration within the IT environment. And then, computer-assisted audit techniques or CADs. These are software that helps auditor evaluate application controls and select and analyze computerized data for substantive audit tests. We'll go each tools and techniques one by one. First, audit productivity tools. So there are several uses for audit productivity tools. First, audit planning and tracking, documentation and presentation, communication, data management, electronic work papers and groupware, resource management, and resource management. First, let's take a look at audit planning and tracking software or productivity tools. So these are necessary tasks in any audit planning. Developing an audit universe with all of the potential audit areas within an organization, a risk assessment prioritizing these audit areas, an audit schedule, and a budget to track audit progress. Just show an example. There can be solutions such as spreadsheets, Excel, database software such as Access, and or project management software, for example, Project or MS Planner to use in such situation. Okay, so there are also Google Sheets, it's an Excel alternative, Asana, the project management software, or Trello, which is our which are what we call as Kanban boards. Okay. Documentation and preparation and presentations. So this include Microsoft Office Suite for the creation and presentation of documents. So that we can also use what they call Google Workspace to document our audit. Conferencing and video capture software such as Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, etc. Next, communication. So required computer hardware, yung mga teleconferencing hardware and software. Protocol handlers, desired terminal software emulator, and high-speed wired or wireless connectivity. We have portals. So portals are websites, usually where all data, results can be seen. So similar to, let's say you are students, an example of portal would be our Canvas LMS as a portal for your lessons and subjects. Also, you have your student portal for all your student and other school concerns. So video conferencing capabilities such as Zoom, WebEx, Citrix, and Adobe Connect. Next, data management, electronic working papers, and groupware. So it serves as a database, a central repository, archive of historical risk, audit schedule, and budget data, monitor, and have immediate access to critical activities such as audit schedule, field audit status, fraud or shortage activity, and training and development progress. While electronic working papers creating, documenting, reviewing, and storing audit work. And groupware or collaborative software are specialized tools or assembly of compatible tools that allow collaborative work. Usually, we have examples such as caseware, but these days, yung big four audit firms, they have their own audit software. So I can only share you about what we use in EY, which we call EY Canvas. So where we track the schedule and put all documentation related to the audit. So I can share with you another example of an electronic working papers and groupware, which also doubles as the shared database for planning the audit. So let me just move the screen. So here we can see this is a shared database which you can share to the audit team members. And then we can see, let's say, yung audit phase, financial initial planning, assessment and identification of risk, designing response to the risks, execution and evaluation, conclusion and communication, and finalization of the documentation and archiving of the working papers. And then we can see, parang if we check this phase, so sabi niya, let's say this one, identify and assess risk. Ang procedure is understand the business. If we check it out, so we can see the purpose of this procedure. And then we have a list of tasks. So yung first task natin under the procedure is understand the business. So you can add kung ano yung status, whether it's not yet started, prepared, reviewed, or completed. So pwede natin not yet started. And then we can add sino ba yung gumawa. So as a preparer, let's see, it's me. And then kung kailan prepare, so let's say today. So the reviewer, let's say it's Rian. Then they reviewed, let's say they review niya ngayon. And we can see that it's also linked to the procedures that we have. Just say we understood the business. Blah, blah, blah. So yan, that we can see and we can track. So pwedeng tingnan ng other team members na how is this task. So we saw that it was reviewed, it was already prepared, it's reviewed, and then we have the description or what has been done for the task. If there are any documentation that needs to be attached, they can also attach in here. Here, attach files. Okay. And you can also see, let's say, this part. So marami siyang tasks, may apat na tasks. So we can see what those four tasks are. So determine preliminary scope. So communicate, so schedule. So this can be also our electronic working paper. So we can see each accounts and then to which testing the accounts relate. So for example, yung mga procedures for testing natin, we set up. So, so yung mga cash, may mga substantive audit procedure tayo. And then with the significant process and controls, cash receipts, cash disbursement, merong test of controls. So we can see and we can track on your related account, description, and other testing documentation. And then if the reviewers or preparers have comments, they can see and assign it to here and can be viewed by everyone. Okay. And if there are any issues that have been observed by the team, they can log it here so everyone can see and view about the items. Okay. So this is just an example of a database that we have created as a sort of data management or repository and electronic working paper. Let's go back. Next, other tools and techniques that help us with our IT audit are what we call system documentation techniques. So primarily, the use of these documentation techniques or system documentation is to understand the relationship of each application to the conduct of the organization's or client's business and to document such understanding. So we can use entity relationship diagrams, data flow diagrams, business flow diagrams, and flowchart. So depending on the audit team or the decision of the audit team, they can use multiple types to document a single process or data flow. That usually what's used are data flow diagrams and business process diagram. If you can remember, in AIS, you have seen processes such as yung mga sales or revenue process. So similar data flow diagrams are used to document system processes. So here is an example of entity relationship diagram. So we have the relationship and the entities. Then we have a simple sample data flow diagram. So we have data sources, and then we have the actual process, and then the data flow. We also have a sample business process diagram. So usually we have the entity performing, in this case, the employees, and then the audit procedure or the activities and procedures taking place within their purview. So these are tasks, and these are the ones performing the tasks. For flowchart, usually documents the flow of the documents between different entities. Now, flowcharting can be used as an audit analysis tools. So auditors prepare flowcharts using standard symbols and techniques to represent application systems, workflows, or processes. So these represent a method for identifying and evaluating control strengths and weaknesses within a financial application system under examination. And flowcharting the process leads to the evaluation of the quality of system documentation, adequacy of manual or automated controls over documents, effectiveness of processing by computer programs, whether the processing is necessary or redundant, and whether the processing sequence is proper. Will also include usefulness of outputs, including reports, and stored files. So here we have just the common flowchart or a list of common flowchart symbols that we can use while flowcharting. So by being familiar with these symbols, you can easily refer to or read flowchart diagrams that will help you in auditing and understanding the process. Okay, so I know you are already familiar with this from AIS, should have been discussed. So moving on. So we must also understand how applications process data. So we review corporate documentation, including system documentation files, input preparation instructions, and user manual. Usually, yan yung starting point, or that's the starting point that we take a look at mga manuals, business process, business requirement documents, or BRD, and then we understand from here the expectation, or we set our expectation on how the process or application should work. And then we also interview organization personnel, including users, system analysts, and programmers. So we can also perform what we call walkthroughs and simulation, by which we see actually how the process takes place and if it matches our expectation and their policies and procedures. Next, we also inspect, compare, and analyze corporate records. So we can identify documents and their flow through the system with the use of flowchart. So in the flowcharts or data flow diagrams, we can see sources and source documents, title and identification number, with copies of the forms attached. Point of origin for each source document, each operating unit or office through which the data are processed, destination of each copy of the source document, actions taken by each unit or office in which data are processed, prepared, recorded, posted, filed, etc. Also controls over the transfer of source documents between units or offices to assure that no documents are lost, added, or changed. So verifications, approvals, record counts, control totals, arithmetic totals of important data, etc. And recipients of computer output. Okay. Next, defining data elements. So the organization's data element dictionary is a good source for such definition. So if a data dictionary is not available, a record layout may contain the needed definitions. And then we can develop the flowchart diagrams using narrative description of all major application systems, all manually prepared source documents that affect application processing, as well as corresponding coding sheets and instructions for data transcription. Record layouts for all major computer inputs and output records, computer master files and work files, such as update or file maintenance tapes and computation tapes, and all major outputs produced by the application system. Then list of standard codes, constants, and tables used by the application. And then, of course, after preparation, we should be able to review and evaluate our documentation. Now, to evaluate the quality of systems documentation, there are two basic questions to answer. So, is the documentation accurate? And is the documentation complete? And then, as auditors, we should also take a look at the controls over these documents. So, to assess that, control points on the flowchart should be identified and evaluated. So, as auditors, we can determine whether controls have been used, and if so, highlight gaps, strengths, and weaknesses within the system. Identified controls, including automated and IT-dependent application controls, should be adequately designed and implemented in order to mitigate risks. And in determining the effectiveness of data processing, the audit staff should determine how effective data processing is by identifying problem areas, such as the ones below in the processing cycle. So redundant processing of data or other forms of duplication, bottleneck points that delay or congest processing, and points in operating cycle at which clerks do not have enough time to review output reports and make the necessary corrections. We should also evaluate the accuracy, completeness, and usefulness of reports. The audit staff should review key or major outputs, for examples, edit listings, error listings, control of our listings, etc., of the financial application system and determine if the outputs are accurate, complete, and useful as intended. The auditor should confirm the accuracy, completeness, and usefulness of the generated reports by interviewing appropriate users. Okay, before moving on the next topic, computer assisted audit techniques or GAATs, let's just have a 10-minute break. minute pa. So let's go back. So we have computer assisted audit techniques or CADs. So CAD can be used both by IT or financial auditors in variety of ways. Can use CADs to evaluate the integrity of application, determine compliance with procedures, and continuously monitor processing results. So we review applications to gain an understanding of the controls in place to ensure the accuracy and completeness of the information generated. And when adequate application controls are identified, the IT auditor performs tests to verify their design and effectiveness. When controls are not adequate, IT auditors perform extensive testing to verify the integrity of the data. To perform tests of application and data, the auditor will use CAADs. So common CAADs include ACL and Interactive Data Extraction and Analysis or IDEA software. This can be used to select a sample, analyze the characteristics of data file, and identify trends in data and evaluate data integrity. So we will be trying to use ACL in our class and Access in Excel can be used to analyze data, create reports, and query data files, while Excel can also be used to analyze data, generate sample, create graphs, and perform regression or trend analysis. And then more specialized tools include the SAP Audit Management, which facilitates the documentation of evidence, organization of working papers, and creation of audit reports. This technique also provides analytical capabilities to shift the focus of audits from basic assurance to providing insight and advice. Let's take a look at the broad categories of computer auditing functions. So the three broad categories of computer auditing functions can be identified as either of the following three: items of audit interest, audit mathematics, and data analysis. First, items of audit interest. The auditor can use the computer to select items of interest such as material items, unusual items, or statistical samples of items by, for instance, stipulating specific criteria for the selection of sample items or by stating relative criteria and let the computer do the selection. Audit mathematics. is when we can use the software to perform extensions or puttings. And although it can be programmed to make many logical comparisons and tests, the computer cannot supplant human judgment in examining items to be tested. So while we can use cats to do this or to do these items, we must always support with additional human judgment. Next, data analysis programs can use techniques such as histograms, modeling, and comparative analysis. We can also use cats for auditing application controls. So, for example, spreadsheet controls. So, some of the key controls that minimize risk in spreadsheet development and use. So, sometimes companies, instead of using applications which has more robust application controls, sometimes they just use a spreadsheet with different macros and programming. So while this is okay, we must take a look at how the controls work in that spreadsheet environment. So the key controls that we should see is understanding the requirement before building the spreadsheet, the sources of data. So there is assurances or there should be assurances that data being used are valid, reliable, and can be authenticated to originating source. It also should be complete. Design review, reviews performed by peers or system professionals, then formulas, macros, and any changes to the spreadsheet should be documented externally and within the spreadsheet. This can also be covered by what we call change management. Verification of logic, reasonable test checks, and comparisons with known outputs. Extent of training, formal training in spreadsheet design, testing, and implementation. Extent of audit, informal design reviews or formal audit procedures. And lastly, support commitment, ongoing application maintenance, and support from IT personnel. Now, for databases, there are controls that auditors commonly expect to identify and ultimately assess within client or organization prepared databases. This includes, first, referential integrity. This prevents deleting key values from related tables. So, for example, in our customer table, we have customer 1, and then in order table, we have order ID 2, which has been made by customer 1. So we cannot be able or we should not be able to delete customer 1 as long as there is an existing order made by customer 1. Transactional integrity, restore value of unsuccessful transaction. All those invalid should be available in logs. Okay. Next, or if if we will take a look at it in a manual way, so let's say may OR ka, OR book mo, OR1, 2, and 3. So nagkamali ka ng sulat or hindi tinuloy yung transaction, pina-cancel, that's OR number 3. You just put cancel on that OR instead of ripping off that or ripping off that specific receipt from bu- the bounded OR book. Next, entity integrity, there is a unique record identification, value constraints, limit values to a selected range, concurrent update protection, prevent data contention. So for example, you have your order system, and then you have staff 1 and staff 2. So for example, staff 1 is updating order 1. Staff 2 should not be able to access and update order 1 at the same time. Next, important then, backup and recovery protection. the ability to back up critical information and applications and restore them to continue operations. And testing protection. Perform tests at the systems, application, and unit level. CATs for operational reviews. Specific activities in an operational review include reviewing operating policies and documentation, confirm procedures with management and operating personnel. So sometimes there are updates to policies and procedures. So for example, merong policies and procedures sa database, tapos nagkaroon lang ng memo, hindi na-update yung mismong repository. So there could be changes that we are not able to see. We just need to confirm that that update actually happened. And then observe operating function and activities so that we could check what is documented is what's actually done. Examine financial and operating plans and reports. Test accuracy of operating information and test operational controls. So next, auditing around the computer versus auditing through the computer. So when the computer is not as pervasive as now, or there is no enough knowledge for auditors to perform or use CATs, we do what we call auditing around the computer or the black box auditing approach. So the auditor obtains source documents that are associated with a particular input transaction and reconciles them against output results. Hence, audit supporting documentation is drawn and conclusions are reached without considering how inputs are processed to provide outputs. So for example, you have different OR, then it's processed in the computer to provide you with sales report. So instead of checking the process, so this is our input, our process, and our output. Instead of checking the process when you are auditing around the computer, so you remove the computer entirely and just check input. So isa-isahin mo yung OR and then match it to the output. So with that, you can say that the process has been correct. Now, the auditing through the computer approach includes a variety of techniques to evaluate how the application and their embedded controls respond to various types of transactions or anomalies that can contain errors. When audits involve the use of advanced techniques or complex applications, the IT auditor must draw upon techniques combined with tools to successfully test and evaluate the application. So when auditing through the computer, you can skip checking all inputs and outputs all together and check the process instead. So for example, you check OR number 3, check the process, how the ORs is handled, and how it appears in the report in order to confirm the process works intentionally or as intended. So other techniques, so these are more sophisticated techniques and process in order to audit through the computer. First, we have integrated test facility or what we call as ITF. So integrated test facilities are built-in test environments within a system. This approach is used primarily with large-scale online systems serving multiple locations within the company or the organization. The test facility is composed of a fictitious company or branch set up in the application and file structure to accept or process test transactions as though it was an actual operating entity. Throughout the financial period, auditors can submit transactions to test the system. So test data. This technique involves methods of providing test transactions to a system for processing by existing applications. So test data provide a full spectrum of transactions to test the processes within the application and the system. Both valid and invalid transactions should be included in the test data, so what we call as positive and negative testing. To test how the system processes handle both correct and erroneous transaction input. So, for example, for a consumer credit card service, such transactions may be invalid account numbers, account that have been suspended or deleted, and others. So, if there is a reliance placed on the program, application, or system testing, some form of intermittent testing is essential. Test data generators are very good tools to support this technique, but should not be relied on entirely for extreme condition testing. Next, parallel simulation involves a separate maintenance of two, presumably identical set of programs. So the original set of programs is the production copy used in the application under examination. The second test or the second set could be a copy secured by auditors at the same time that the original version was placed into the production. So you have what we call a test system and a production system. So dapat same version kung 21 version 21.01 dapat in test ay version 21.01 din. As changes or modifications are made into the production programs, the auditors make the same updates to the copies. If no unauthorized alteration has taken place using the same inputs, comparing the results from each set of programs could yield the same result. Another way is for the auditor to develop pseudocode using higher level languages from the base documentation following the process logic and requirements. For audit process, both software application, test versus actual, would utilize same inputs and generate independent results that can be compared to validate internal processing. So in parallel situation, while we create the test or the test system, we encode ourselves all the data inputted into the production, and that would result to the same result. Both should result into the same reports or output. That's how it's different with, if you see this, this is almost the same with integrated test facility. Just that the test facility or the test system is maintained concurrently with the production system. And as auditors, we can input other data or input data within the test system. Okay. Next, embedded audit modules are program audit module that is added to the application under review. So this is a separate module in the system that allows auditors access for the data of the system. Next, SCARF, or Systems Control Audit Review File, is another real-time technique that can collect specific transactions or processes that violate certain predetermined conditions or patterns. So this may be enhanced by DSS that alerts designated personnel of unusual activity or items out of the ordinary. Computer forensic specialists can collect data to log files for further review and examination. This is usually used in what we call continuous auditing. So for example, may rule na that all sales should have credit approval So if a sale, dumiretso siya sa finished while skipping the credit approval process, it would alert the internal audit department already to check what happened in that transaction. Next, transaction tagging follows a selected transaction to the application from input, transmission, processing, and storage to its output to verify the integrity, validity, and reliability of the application. So some applications have a trace or debug function which can allow one to follow the transaction to the application. This may be a way to ensure that the process for handling unusual transactions is followed within the application modules and code. For example, let's say sale the transaction number 123, you should be able to follow like yung processing nito towards picking up until delivery and invoicing. We should be able to follow and trace back to ensure that it has been properly processed by the system. We also have computer forensic tools. So computer forensics is the examination, analysis, testing, and evaluation of computer-based material conducted to provide relevant and valid information to a court of law. So computer forensics tools are increasingly used to support law enforcement, computer security, and computer audit investigations. Okay, that ends the theory part of tools and techniques in IT audit. Do you have any questions? Okay, I think there are no more questions. Let's just take a look at uh, ACL for now. Mm, Let me just close so that you can. Uh, okay. Okay. So as I have announced last week or within the week, you should have been able to download and install ACL from the HiPod website. Think, if you follow the link, so you'll see something like this. We have FAU, and then just go to downloads, and then download ACL for Windows. So sa mga naka-Mac dyan, sorry, but ACL is only available in Mac. So it's only available in Windows. So, sorry about that. So let's just take a look. So once you have downloaded, you just need to install and then sign up in order to activate your license. That would be good for the duration of the semester. Okay, let's just take a look at the files. So we'll see that we are in our organization, and then let's just use this file. So ACL rockwood.acl. So you can also open an analytic project or file that you might have. So, but for demonstration purposes, let's use ACL Rockwood, one of the sample files available within the download or installation. So here we'll see the ECL Rockwood database. Mm. So we have several databases. So acquisitions, payment, inventories, payroll, sales and collection, and civil authorizations and customers. So we can see the different tables. So let's just open the payments table. So you can, by right clicking at different fields, so we have different fields, so payment number, parang Excel lang din. If you want to filter or find a specific date, so let's say we want to see the payment date, see, you want to see the payment date after, so this is 2014, after 2011. So let's see, it after March 1, 2014. So we can see from the data, it has updated. Not only those with payment date, which is greater than or after March 1, 2014, can be seen in the file. Just clear that. So when we clear our filter, with our original data will be restored. And then one of the first commands that we can use is to count the data. So we can automatically see that there are 5,241 records. Either way, we can also put in analyze and then count or press Control 3. Here we can specify a filter. So for example, if you only want those payment date between March 1 to March 31, 2014, you can specify that here. So I'll just leave it blank. So we can see or do a record count of all records. So just click OK. So hindi lumalabas agad yung result. We'll have to check it over the lower left. Click on logs and you'll see here count. Just double click that and then we can see as of November 13, 2021, current time or 13/22/36, the use of command count, it has resulted or it has counted 5,241 records counted. As an alternative way to do count, you can use Control 3 or you can show up the command line window. So go to window and put an click on command line. So the command line will appear here. You can type count and enter. That will automatically do the count procedure. So that's, you can see here, this one is done by analyze count. And this one is the one we have used to do the count using the command line. Okay. Then we can also do and also total commands. So you can do there's two ways, analyze and then total. You can see here, or you can select the fields that you need totals for. So in this data sheet, so the only thing that we can total or the item or the field that we need to total would be payment amount. So we can see here that's payment amount. Okay. And click OK. Oops. Sorry. Click to select and then OK. See here, the total payment is 61,704,330.54. You can also use the command line by inputting total fields and then specify the field name. So you can see it will generate the same amount, 61,704,330.34. So we can also use ACL to verify for validity errors. For that, we can use the verify command. So verify ensures that data in a table conforms to the table layout and reports on any errors encountered. So we can use just put on click on data and then verify, and then click on the fields you want to be verified. So let's just select everything, pressing Shift key and click on all the fields. Okay, and then click OK. So now this result of the command will be shown. So there are zero data validity errors in our dataset. Okay. We can also use ACL to analyze our data. You might be wondering, no, sir, bakit why should we use ACL instead of just using Excel? So, you could always use Excel. The problem is Excel might be slower in manipulating a large amount of data. So you can see this data that we are looking at, it's 5,000 records. So if this loads up to 5 million records, Excel won't be able to keep up. Not unlike ECL, it will be handled properly. So maybe if you have a smaller set of data, you can definitely use Excel. But if you have larger set of data and more complicated databases, you can use directly ACL. Okay. So you can summarize the data. So you stratify to summarize data according to numeric ranges. You can use age to summarize data according to date ranges. You can use classify to summarize data according to ranges based on unique values on a single character field. You summarize to produce a summary of the data according to ranges based on multiple character or date fields, and display the results with selected data from associated fields. And cross-tab or cross-tabulate to summarize with setting character fields in rows and columns, accumulating numeric values. So let's try one of these commands. So let's produce a stratified summary. So let's just analyze and then stratify. So I guess we can stratify on amount. So okay. And then we set on our interval amount. So let's just say 100. So minimum ay 10. And then maximum is at 100,000. Tama ba? Let me just double check our data. Yeah, it's just 50,000. Analyze and then stratify. Sorry. So minimum value, let's say 0. And then 50,000. And then our interval size is 10,000. So then click OK. And see that is processing a bit. The number of rows selected for graphing is only first. Oh, I think I have selected a very small interval size. Let me fix that. 50,000. Analyze, stratify. No, no, no. Alam ko na yung mali ko. I analyze and then stratify. So let's just put it to 1,000 and then 5,000, 50,000. 10,000. Size 5. Okay. That's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 intervals. So we can see that the that's stratified. The minimum payment amount which is less than 10,000 and our maximum is 50,000. And then it's stratified into 5 groups. So we can see that's the text or the table amount. You can see a percent of count. So 3,725 out of 5,241 records and so on. And then the payment amount, that's 17.37% of the total 61,704,330.54. And then we can see the graph of the payment amount. Okay. Do you have any questions? So I think I've already introduced the basic functions to you. I will be sharing to you the getting started guide so you could explore on your own. Okay. So again, before we Okay, to start, before we dive in with using ACL, let's just take a look about our reference corporation that will be used in the entire series. So since 1995, we have Metaphor or Metaphor Corporation has sold software and IT services. Metaphor has several dozen consultants who are full-time employees. So these consultants work out of Metaphor's head office and they also travel the world in order to install software, provide training courses, and initiate and maintain sales relationship. So Metaphor has also an administrative and professional staff members in the head office. In addition, Metaphor has sales agents in various locations around the world who are not employees. So all these items are in the PDF that I've shared, ACL in practice. So Metaphor credit card policies. So most employees have a company credit card. When an employee purchases products or services for the company, he or she must use a company credit card. So employees entertain clients and prospective clients as appropriate both in Metaphor's home city and while traveling. They're also responsible for their own professional development and expected to charge the company credit card for courses, books, journal subscriptions, and professional memberships. So some employees are also responsible for purchasing supplies for the office. So thus, Metaphor Corporation incurs significant expenses in several categories: travel, entertainment, client service, professional development, and internal office expenses. Metaphor's policy is that all purchases must be assigned to a customer number. And although most of the customer number corresponds to external clients, customer numbers that start with zero correspond to internal departments. Employees are aware that certain categories of transactions are unacceptable. For example, employees must not use corporate credit cards for gambling, although the company sometimes approves transactions in other categories. Permission must be granted in advance. Some categories are prohibited entirely. So by using ACL to analyze credit card transactions of Metaphor employees, you can find transactions that are contrary to policies and transactions that might be erroneous or fraudulent. So the following table shows all allowable expenses. Then we have acceptable category codes, merchant category list. So data files for the Metaphor Corporation. So preliminary work has already been done. So we have this following files: acceptable codes, credit card metaphor, credit card information, company department, text, employee CBS, transaction April.xls, and unacceptable codes.txt. Okay, let's move on to examining employee data first. So first, we'll take a look at some Metaphor Corporation and employee profile data. We will analyze salaries, bonuses, hiring dates, and other human resources information. Okay, so we have a ready project. So let's open ACL. So ACL is already open in my screen. And then let's open the sample data file, which is Metaphor employee data. So here you'll see on sample data files. Okay, let's just open that. Okay, so this is your project navigator, and this is your table view. Just go to the overview tab. So let's view the contents of the employee data project. So in the overview, let's click on metaphor employee data.acl, right click and check out the properties. So you can check the notes tab, and then while you can see, you can see that there are no notes, you can add your own notes to provide or record details of the work. So let's say this is data uh, employees, a metaphor. Okay, let's just close that. So let's double click the agent's metaphor table. So we'll see here on the right side the list of agents in metaphor corporation. So this is the table. So analyze, let's try to count the records first. Select analyze and then count and click OK. So makita natin walang nagbago, but we can see 41 here. And then in the logs, you can see the use of the command count. Then you can see we have 41 records counted. And let's repeat this time for the employee table. So let's double click on the employee list and then count this. You can also use Control plus 3. Okay. You can see we have 200 records. So open employee list, we have for table employee underscore list, we have 2 records counted. Okay, let's try getting a statistical picture for the employee list. So let's go back to employee list. So make sure you are not selecting any of the columns. So let's select analyze, go to statistical, and then click on statistics. Click on the statistics on button and then click add all. So okay, click OK. So we'll get a statistics log. So we'll see the results. So it will perform statistics on the fields that we have selected. So first field is the bonus. You can see the total, the average, the highest and the lowest, 5 for hire date. So we can see that the earliest hiring date is January 1, 1995, and the latest is December 19, 2022. So you can also run the statistics command with each field separately. So we can also use a profile to get information about a table. So let's just go back to the employee list table, go to analyze, and then click file. Profile fields, just add all, and then click OK. So ACL will provide the results. So salary and bonus, total value 10 million. bonus 1,000,076, the maximum and minimum. Okay. Okay. Next, we try to look for duplicate last names. So one way to ensure the integrity of data is to check for duplicate records. So one employee might be listed under two names or under the same name twice. So two employees might have been assigned the same employee number inadvertently. So the type of duplicates you want to check with depends on the data you're working with. So in the next procedures, we'll try to check for duplicates on the employee last name and the employee number. So now let's go back to our employee list to analyze and go to duplicates. So we'll see the duplicates dialog box. So let's click on duplicates on and we see the selected fields. So let's click on the last name and let's click the arrow button and then click OK. Next, let's click on list fields and then let's just add all. Okay. So let's just say okay. Okay. Sorry. Wait pala. It's just I'm gonna reopen the file. Dapat screen lang pala. Analyze and then duplicates. Then duplicates on last name. Okay. And then list fields, add on. Okay. For the output, let's just click screen. Okay. So we'll see the results. The last name. So makita natin parehas. Fisher, pero magkaiba naman yung first name. So this is not really a. So if you try to click, you'll see the details of this duplicate. Okay. So let's remove this filter. So we'll have all the item names again. Now let's see if we can check for those with duplicate employee numbers. Just gonna close this. So let's just go back to analyze and then duplicates. So duplicates on employee number. Okay. And let's just list all fields. Then output to screen. So as you can see, there are no duplicate employee number. So next we can examine the employee salaries and bonuses. We have been asked to find several things from the employee data. First, the total bonuses that were paid in 2002, the salaries paid from highest to lowest and from lowest to highest, the number of people who were hired in 2002, and the ratio of bonus to salary for each employee in 2002. So the first task is to find the total bonuses paid in 2002. So let's just go back to the employee table. Just close this. So now we have our employee list table open. Select analyze and then total. Let's select bonus 2002 and then click OK. As you can see, the total paid bonus or the bonus paid during 2002 is 1,438.76. So in your working papers, you can like take a screenshot of this and then put this in your working papers. Next, view salaries in ascending and descending order. So we have the quick sort feature for that. So employee list. So let's say in the salary header, just click, it's now selected. Then right click, quick sort ascending. So we'll see this is one of the lowest salary. And then the end would be the highest. Then we can also right click and then turn off quick sort. Then try quick sort descending. So we'll see now at the top would be the highest salary. Okay. Now we want to see the employees hired in 2002. So let's create a filter to show employees that were hired in 2002. Let's click on the edit filter. So now we will build the expression. Let's use this one, greater than or equal to. Click on hire date. Oops, hire date. So greater than or equal to. So let's click on the date. Sabi niya ay 2002. It's 2022 pala yun. January 1, 2002. Okay. Then, okay. So we will see all those that were hired in 2002. Although, we can say that from the previous exercises, wala naman tayong nakita 2003 talaga. But to be sure, we can change the expression to add. So we can also edit by clicking here. And then let's just type end hire date less than or equal to, using the reverse question quotation mark or apostrophe 2002 December 31. So this will ensure that we only get those in between these two dates. Okay. So note that there are 17 records for this filter. Let's write down. So there are 17 records. Then we have to determine bonuses as a percentage of salary. Now to remove this filter, just click on the X. Okay. So we want to determine the bonus as a percentage of salary for all employees. So to do this, we add a computed field to the table layout. So a computed field is created with an expression. So this expression can use one or more fields already in the table. So let's go to edit and then table layout. So the table layout window opens with the edit and fields expression tab. Let's click on add a new expression. So we'll add, say, bonus percent salary. Then field. Let's click on f of x or function. So we build the expression. So bonus 2002 multiplied by 100 divided by salary. Oops. Salary. Verify. Click on OK. And then in format, let's select, let's put in 99.99%. Okay, now we're ready to save this. Just click on the question mark. So you can see we have our new field in this area. Okay, so let's just, and you will see the field that we have created in this area of the table. Okay, if it's not appearing on your side, just right click and click on add columns. Makita nyo to? Add nyo lang. Okay, so but it's already visible on my side. Okay. Any questions? Were you able to follow? Okay. So there are some exercises that you have to do on your own. That's on page 18. So now let's try on from chapter 3, setting up the project for metaphor. So let me just close this one. See. Okay. So let's try creating a new project. So let's create a new analytic project. And then we're gonna save this as ACL, tutorial metaphor. So first, let's add the credit cards metaphor. Let's add a table. Let's add a table. And click next. So local, next. So let's look for the file. Pala lahat eh. Hmm, let's have credit cards metaphor. Credit cards metaphor. Click open. Let's just click on next. Click on this. Next. So we'll see table initially. Let's just click on next. So let us just save this as credit cards metaphor. And click on save. And then click on credit card. Okay. See? See it now in the ACL screen. Next, the April transactions worksheet. So just click on add table. Just say yes. Next, and then open trans April. Next, 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 and then save it as trans April. Save, then save as trans April. Just save that. And then next, we upload or import the unacceptable quotes.txt file. So click on plus table, next, and then acceptable quotes.txt, next. So for the file format, the data definition wizard, select the delimited text file. It's supposed to be online. So next, supposed to be delimited. And here, delimited text file. Next. And then use the first row as field names. And then click on tab as the field separator. And click on next. Save the table as unacceptable codes. Go next. So make sure this is ASCII text. And then ASCII text. So next. And then finish. Okay. Then see the codes and the description. Just fix it, save it. So let's import the company departments. Next, next, next. Limited text file. Next. So select first row as field names and then separated by a tab. Next. Enter as company depth as text and this one as ASCII text. The field code to header, let's put in depth. Let's put here depth. Next, finish. Save as company depth. So we have our list of departments. And then employee CSV. Next, next, next. The limited text file. So use comma as a field separator. Use first row as field names. Next file as employees. Save. Next. Change the card number field to ASCII and then employee number as ASCII. So let's ensure that the salary is numeric and the bonus as numeric. Or go next, finish, and save as employees. You can see the employees table. Okay. Next, import the acceptable codes access database. So click on plus, tape, next. So let's look for acceptable codes, FTP. That's an access database. Click next. As acceptable codes. Save. And then finish. Save as so save your project file and then save. And now our project is so let's check and verify the data. So before we proceed with analyzing your data, you should always verify it. For example, if a field is supposed to contain dates but also contain names, your analysis may be meaningless. Okay, so let's see if it's correct for the credit cards metaphor. So let's open the table, click on edit, table layout, and look at category and type to determine how the data has been designed. So yung card number, while this is numeric, it should be a character data because we'll not be performing mathematical operations with card numbers. So let's double click on the card num entry, and in the type drop down, let's click on ASCII and then click on the green to accept that entry. So we have ASCII for that. And now close the table view. So now we have determined that the data types are valid. We can use the verify command to check whether data table matches its data type. So let's go to data and then verify. Click on verify field, add all, then okay. And then click on okay. So now we have validated that there are zero errors in our table. We can proceed in our analysis. Now you can also add record notes to table. So for example, we have the employees table open. Right click on cell 3, then click on edit note. We can say it like this employee is leaving and for. So there is a note, but it won't affect your data. So let's just also verify this table, so na-verify natin yung credit cards. Let's try verifying the employees, the data, and then verify. Click on verify fields, add all, and then okay. And you'll see the zero data validity errors has been detected. So now we're looking at chapter 4, page 41 of the ACL in practice handout. So we'll try to determine the total liability, extract the expiring card numbers, find transactions for a customer, and check credit card balances. So sabi natin, if every Metaphor employee reached the credit limit on his or her credit card, what would be the total debt for Metaphor? So we can determine this figure by totaling the credit limit field. We can use the total function. So credit card Metaphor is open. Then analyze total fields. So credit limit is credit limit fields, total fields, credit limit, and then select. You can see if the credit limit is exhausted, the total liability for Metaphor is 1,440,800. Okay, you can extract expiring credit card numbers. So let's just go back. So you plan to coordinate with the accounting department to ensure there is no problem with the employees getting new credit cards. So you filter all credit cards that have an expiry date of January 1, 2004 or earlier. Let's just close. So filter, let's click on and write and you filter, sorry, this one. And then expiry date is less than, that's before, on or before 2004 January. Okay. I manually inputted that, but you can also use date and time. Try to look for 2004 January 1. So you have that. Verify to double check that the expression is valid. Okay. Okay. So we'll see that there are some which are expiring on 2004. Then let's just count the first 3. Okay. And then you see we have 8 records expiring January 1, 2004. So we can export this data. So data, export. So nakuha mo na to. Send mo na siya kay, kay accounting. So export to other application. Select the view. So export as text. Siguro. Enter a descriptive file name. So CCN. Credit card number. Expire by January 1. Click on that. We have the list of all the credit card numbers. So you can print this or just send. Uh, okay. Next, let's try finding transactions by customer number. Just remove that filter. We have been warned about any expenditures related to customer 444413. We want to find some information about the transaction associated with that customer number. So let's try looking at the transactions table. So trans April. Let's double check that the amount has the correct format. Let's go to edit table layout. Sure the amount is in numeric. Okay. Card num is ASCII. Customer number is ASCII. Description is ASCII. Trans date is date and time. And let's just close the table. Yep. So we can use now the find function. So edit the filter. On this, edit the filter. Let's type the expression find 444413 ma customer number. On verify, ensure that this is valid. So let's count the records, analyze, then count. Okay, we have 26 total records relating to 444413. So now let's say you can forward this information to the accounting to check on kung tama ba yan or which ones are valid for that transaction. Okay, now let's see if we can do the next thing. Check the credit card balances. So let's first we will be we want to find the highest balances or find balances over a certain limit. So let's filter the new bal field to find balances that exceed $1,000 or $2,000. Let's open the credit card metaphor. So yung new balance column, you can see you can use the quick sort descending. So we can see see this person already have $10,000 in the account. So let's see if there are greater than $2,000. Let's just type directly add greater than 123. Click OK. So since this data is sorted already in descending, so we might not be able to see the data. So, but you can see the end of the file now is greater than 2,000. Just count. Click OK. We have 53 records, which is greater than 2,000 USD. Okay. I think you will be able to do the rest of the items in your own time. So, do you have any questions? Were you able to follow some of the functions? These are the pretty basic or valid functions for use in the ACL. Walang question? Naguluhan lang ba? Are you able to follow? Okay. If you don't have any questions, uh, medyo nabilisan. Anyways, you can always reopen our class recording and then just review on the parts that you think was too fast for you. So yeah, it's because we also have a limited time and then we cannot naman, and siguro the limitation also would be that I really can't go like on your side and see what you are doing exactly to guide. But you can always review our recorded session so you can review the things that you have. It's okay. And the ACL practice workbook naman, it lists the function step by step. Okay. So that's it, I think, for ACL.